Hello and welcome everyone. We are really glad to have you here for the next session of our Day 1 and Beyond Security series. Our topic today is, you can see, Monitoring Cloud Security Part 2. In our previous session last month, you learned about Container Security, OS Management Hub, Cloud Guard, and Threat Intelligence. And today you'll learn how the monitoring, logging, event management, and notification tools in OCI empower organizations to achieve continuous monitoring, performance, and security. My name is Renu Bhatt. I'm a program lead with the Customer Enablement team. And today we have with us Dinesh Marichavia and GK Goela. Both are cloud security architects here at Oracle. And without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to GK. GK, please take it forward.
Yep, thank you so much, Renu. Hey everyone, this is GK Goela. So I'm this cloud security specialist, part of Oracle for last 13 years, and I have in total 18 years of overall experience in cybersecurity. So along with me, I have my colleague Dinesh. Today we both are going to talk about logging, monitoring, and securing aspects of your workloads, which might be running in OCI or outside OCI. So with that, I will let Dinesh to introduce himself before we dive into agenda. Hey Dinesh, do you want to introduce?
Hey all, this is Dinesh. I've been with Oracle for about 10 years now, and I've been in the security space for about 12 years. Learning as always. GK, please go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Dinesh. Okay, so as Renu mentioned, right? So as part of this series, some of our colleagues, they have covered topics on several topics related to security and monitoring. And in the previous session, we covered our cloud security posture management, which is Cloud Guard, and also about managing OS as well as securing OS instances, including container security. So if you have not attended, we have attached a recording link. If that is something interesting to you, you could always go to that link and listen to that webinar. But for today's topic, we are going to cover a couple of very critical aspects of managing your workloads in cloud. So those topics are auditing and logging, and SIEM integration, security information and event management systems, like how do I integrate SIEM with OCI? And also we are going to talk about our advanced logging analytics service. And in addition to that, my colleague Dinesh is going to talk about two more critical services, like OCI monitoring service to monitor your workloads, and also leveraging events and notification service to solve different real-time use cases. So before we actually deep dive into these topics, let's take a step back and discuss about whenever you have workloads in cloud, while cloud offers its own advantages, whether it is scalability, performance, and better security, it also brings its own challenges very specific to observing, managing, and monitoring your cloud workloads. So what makes these challenges particularly very complex, right? So in my, in general, if you agree with me, right? So there are three factors we consider. The first thing is the volume, the huge amount of workloads. They keep on growing on a cloud environment, whether it is your workloads, apps, data. And not only that, the continuous changes to your workloads and the logging aspects of your workloads, and the velocity, the way it happens, the speed it happens, right? So today you may start with some amount of workloads today, but over the time, there will be a speed where you're catching up in a lot of things, and you're going to add more and more workloads. And not only that, the variety of technologies you're going to use, it could be IaaS services, PaaS services, third party, bringing your own custom apps. So when you have this kind of environment, you need a comprehensive and fully integrated platform to monitor, observe, and secure the entire workloads. So whenever I say workloads, it could be running on our OCI tenancy or outside OCI tenancy. So you need a comprehensive observability and management platform. So in any observability and management service, so there are some business challenges it should address, right? At very high level, if you look at many enterprise, they may have very siloed observability tools. So for example, having one tool to monitor one set of applications and having another tool to manage other set of workloads. So, but if you have a comprehensive one, it should provide a single pane of glass where you can see have the complete visibility and control access of all aspects of your IT systems. And not only that, it should reduce your operational complexity. So what I mean by reducing the operational complexity, it should offer a unified view where the entire systems, including their metrics, logs, traces, should be in one place. So that way you can manage the complex environments and improve the visibility across all distributed systems. And it's not only that, incident management and troubleshooting. So especially identifying the root cause of a problem, usually like it's very time consuming to spend so many manual hours to find out why do I have my, performance issues, why my systems are down, why my services are down. So you need to have a system where it provides insights in a very proactive manner to troubleshoot and, keep your services online so that your end users will not be impacted. And also the performance issues, right? So how do I fine tune workloads, to provide a better performance for my end users? And most importantly, compliance and security, right? So you may, based on your line of business, the industry you belong, you may need to meet certain, regulatory requirements. So you need to prove that you are taking, the best security practices in the workload. So you're doing kind of your own due diligence. You are proving to your auditor that, we have taken enough measure to monitor and secure environment. So a single platform should provide all these use cases, like, all these challenges it should address, right? So that's where our observability and management platform will provide and also solve those challenges. So this OCI observability management platform, it will enable to address all the challenges that we discussed in the previous slide. So this platform is a suite of integrated services. As you can see on the slide, we built these services on top of each other to work together, right? I mean, it is not a siloed environment. It is like a comprehensive single pane of glass where it will allow you to audit, monitor, and get alerts based on the events which are going on in your workload environment. So as you can see on the slide, there are a bunch of services, but for this session, we are going to focus on OCI logging, monitoring service, events and notifications, and we are going to talk about a component called Service Connector Hub, which will help you to integrate OCI with third-party systems like SIEM. And we are also going to talk about logging analytics. So with that, let's talk about one service at a time. So the first service I'm going to talk about is OCI Audit and Logging Service. So logs contain very critical information on how your resources and applications are performed or how users are accessing those applications or resources, right? So to manage all that critical information in OCI is like, we made it very easy. So we provide OCI logging service, which is a centralized log management where you can manage all types of logs within OCI, whether it is audit logs, service logs, or logs coming from your custom applications, right? So when I say service logs, we are talking about OCI native service. It could be virtual cloud service, object storage, load balancer, but not limited to these three, right? There are like many services. So, and also we have an agent for collecting logs from your custom applications. So these custom applications may be running on OCI compute, or these applications running on your on-premise, or it could be on a multi-cloud. So for those kind of applications, yes, we provide agents to bring those logs. We call them as a custom logs. So when you have all these logs in one place, right, what is the value you are going to get, right? So the value is you can search, correlate logs from all sources in one view. So the source could be my custom app or logs coming from OCI services, logs coming from the auditing services. So you can create visualizations with logs and metrics. And most importantly, these log events can be used for security auditing and also tracking usage and changes to your OCI resources over the time. And especially like a troubleshooting, like whenever you run into any issues, whether it is your app layer or, middleware layer or compute layer, wherever it is, like you need information to investigate. So it will help you to troubleshoot those issues via, logs. By the way, like our service is completely based on open standards. We comply with, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And the way we ingest logs into OCI service is using the Fluentity. So now, since we discussed about three types of logs, let's go a little deeper dive into each type of log. What do they mean? So the first one is audit logs. So these are the logs generated by our OCI audit service, and this focus more on the control plane. So what do I mean by control plane? Control plane provides administrative APIs to create and manage resources in OCI, right? Whether you create, delete, query, so you are making a call using control plane APIs. So whenever you interact with OCI, whether you're logging from console or you're programmatically accessing OCI APIs or using CLIs, so every activity, like every call that you make to OCI, that particular event and log will be recorded in the form of audit logs. So you don't need to enable anything explicitly. The day one, like whenever you activate your OCI tenancy, so by default, auditing is enabled, and it's going to continuously collect and store those audit records, and the retention period is 365 days. And the very common question we get, like, what are the measures we take to protect this audit log? So we will make sure there is no audit log tampering for whatever reason. So we continuously do data integrity checks. So that's one important factor. As I mentioned, like, audit logs will help you to get some kind of visibility at the control plane. And using, those logs, you can trace like what is going on across your OCI environment. So that is about audit logs. Now let's look at the other type of logs called service logs. So these are the logs which are emitted by your OCI native service. So whenever I say OCI native, it can be any of these services or even more. So these are some examples. So these service logs are focused on the data plane, right? I mean, I spoke about control plane. Now we are focusing on the data plane. So whenever I say data plane, it's all about like the primary function of the service itself, right? So let's say you have an object storage create. So whenever you create an object storage, it's a control plane event. But once you once you create the object storage bucket, whenever you upload or whenever a compute instance or any other service which access the object storage, like in all that communication, all that interaction will go on the data plane, whether you're getting data from object storage bucket or putting it back. So those are the data plane activities about the service itself. It is focused more on the monitoring and troubleshooting aspect of the OCI services. So to summarize, audit logs focus on control plane. That is mainly for getting the use cases about security, compliance, and auditing purpose. Service logs are more about monitoring and keeping your eye on your resources for troubleshooting and analysis purpose. So that is a key difference between audit and service logs. Now let's talk about the other types of custom logs. So custom logs, the name itself says, right? So you may be running custom applications on OCI, and you want to bring those logs from custom applications. It could be OS, or it could be web server logs, it could be database logs, or it could be your application server logs. So if you want to bring those kinds of logs, whether they're running on OCI or outside OCI, we provide a agent called custom log monitoring, which you can leverage and bring those logs into OCI logging service so that you are keeping all logs in one place. So one important point here, you might be thinking, hey, there might be some custom applications where you may not allow to deploy agents. So in that case, you can still push logs from your custom applications to OCI using REST API endpoints if you don't want to go through the agent route, right? So that one thing you can keep in mind here. So when you have these kinds of logs, right? I mean, obviously you will end with a bunch of, very, huge amount of logs. So how do I manage my logs on a day-to-day environment, right? So the one option here is there is a concept of log groups, whether it is audit logs, service logs, or custom logs. Each type of log should associate with a log group. So a log group is a logical container for your organizing log. So let me give an example. Let's say in OCI today, you may be running different projects, right? I mean, some marketing project or finance or HR. So based on the project, you may have different applications, different workloads, and each workload generates a different set of logs, right? I mean, you want to kind of, logically segregate those logs so that you're limiting those logs to a specific container. So that's where you create the log group to logically separate. So let's take an example. Let's say you have a OCI compartment where you are running like a couple of projects. So one of the project is a very sensitive called PII project. So I don't want to expose those logs to anyone outside my PII project, right? So in that case, what would I do? Like, I would create a dedicated group called PII log group. Then I'm gonna send all those logs to that particular log group and define some IAM policies to tell like who can access my logs. Can my application owner access the logs, or like auditor can access the logs? So you can define all those controls by writing policies for log groups. So again, to summarize, the reason like you manage and analyze them more effectively by creating log groups. And if there is a use case for sensitive logs, you can create policies to limit access, which will help you to ultimately to satisfy compliance and audit purposes. So with that, we have covered OCI auditing logging. So at this slide, we want to run a poll to understand if you have any security information and event management system called SIEM, something like Splunk Curator that you can see. So awesome. So I can see all results here, like, most of the audience, they join here, like they have Splunk Curator and other open system. Okay, that's good to know. So with that, let's dive into the next topic called SIEM system, right? So we discussed about different types of logs that you get from OCI. But now if you think from the bigger picture, right? So at the enterprise-wide, OCI could be one of your engine to run your workloads, or you may have workloads on other cloud, or you may have workloads running on-prem, or like you may have workloads together, right? So when you have variety of environments, and on the other hand, you have your enterprise-wide SIEM system. So there is always a use case where you want to bring OCI logs into SIEM system. So we are going to discuss about that now. So first of all, let's try to understand what is SIEM, right? I mean, SIEM, probably you guys are aware of, like, it is a comprehensive platform that collects logs from different sources. It could be from OCI, for your on-prem, third party, or workloads running anywhere. Like you want to bring all those logs into one system so that, you can, so that like you can have everything in one place to solve a couple of use cases. So before we look into use cases, if you see like in general, these are the most SIEM system that we come across on a day-to-day basis, like whether it could be Splunk, Sentinel, Curator from IBM, and there are some open source SIEM tools. Or if a customer, like if you do not have any SIEM tool in place, so you can leverage our OCI logging analytics itself can act as a SIEM platform to address those use cases. But what are the use cases that SIEM is going to solve, right? So first thing, it is going to provide a real-time monitoring environment where you get like real-time visibility into all security events and incidents which are going across all your environments. And you can do event correlation, right? I mean, whenever there is a security incident or a problem, so you want to correlate how it has happened from end to end. So when the data is getting pulled from multiple sources, you should be able to like, correlate those events across multiple systems to identify what is normal versus what is abnormal. And probably like, potentially like, you should be able to find potential threats it may occur in your environment. So these are all very helpful for incident detection and response. And most importantly, it will help you to satisfy your audit and compliance team. By providing all the events that you collect, you can generate a report and you can show it to them saying that we are doing our own due diligence to make sure we have a secure environment, right? So now let's discuss about how do I integrate my OCI platform with SIEM. So there should be some vehicle that should forward logs from OCI to your SIEM system. So that's where Service Connector Hub, this is a component that you have by default in a OCI tenancy. So as you can see in the diagram, Connector Hub is responsible for moving data from one place to other place. So on the left side, you have, several services, we call them as the sources. That's where you have logs or a data that you want to move to other service. So on the left side, you have the sources, and the middle, you have Connector Hub, which will move data from one place to other place. Just give me a second here. Yeah. So on the right side, you have the target, right? That is where you are going to push the data. So let's see like what are the data that you can transfer using Connector Hub. So the data include audit logs, service logs, custom logs, as we discussed. And not only that, my colleague Dinesh is going to talk about OCA monitoring. That service itself generates metrics or usage information about your resources. That information can be transferred over to the target using Service Connector Hub and the event data and queue message. So what are the use cases I'm going to solve, right? The most important, as I mentioned, like you can use Connector Hub to integrate with SIEM tool. So in this case, Connector Hub can move data from logging service to a streaming service. If you see on the right side, the bottom one streaming service, that is our Kafka-based streaming service from where your SIEM system can pull data from, streaming service. That is one use case. And the other use case is like, as I mentioned, like at the beginning, the retention period is 365 days. So for whatever reasons, whether it's the auditing and compliance, if you want to keep your log records, audit records more than 365 days, one option would be you can use Connector Hub to move those logs to your object storage for long-term storage and long-term archive. That is another use case that you can solve with Service Connector Hub. But for the focus today is for SIEM integration. So let's see the SIEM reference architecture with OCA. There are like several use cases, several integration patterns where you can think of SIEM integration. One, I would like to move all my critical OCA logs and events to my SIEM system, right? So how do I do that? Like, first you select your audit logs, service logs, custom logs, like whatever you want to pull. And those logs are available in logging service. That is by default. And you create your log groups. From there, you push those log groups to Service Connector Hub. So based on your needs, you can create as many as Service Connector Hub you can create. So as you can see on the diagram here, so you can create a Service Connector Hub and point it to OCA Kafka streaming. Or you can create one more Service Connector Hub for other use case where I would like to forward my logs to object storage. So from now, I would like to pull or push this information to my external SIEM. So for example, you have a SIEM. So now let's assume that my SIEM has the ability to talk to OCA Kafka using Kafka connector, right? So then in this case, SIEM either can pull or OCA can push data to my SIEM system. So this is one use case. And the other use case, in the previous session, we explained about CloudGuard, our cloud security posture management. So whenever CloudGuard identifies a potential threat or potential problem in your OCA environment, we can capture those problems using our event service, and event service can put that information into Kafka. And from Kafka, it can go to SIEM. That way, your SIEM administrator can see, hey, there is a kind of potential threat that I could see. Now let me investigate and troubleshoot, right? So these are the top two use cases that we come across every day with our different customers. So now for this demo, we are going to show the integration between SIEM, like IBM Curator and OCI. But again, the approach is still same, right? You have Service Connector Hub in the middle. The data will be pulled from logging service and push it to Kafka. From there, we have the Curator, right? Curator will be reaching out to Kafka streaming and pull all the logs into SIEM system. So let's dive into the demo now. So I'm going to cover demo in two parts, like one on OCA logging service. The other one is SIEM integration with IBM Curator. So this is my dashboard on OCA. Like as soon as you log into dashboard, this is what you see. So let me go to the section called observability and management. That is where we find logging service, right? So let's drill like whatever we discussed in the slide deck, right? So I mentioned there are three types of logs: audit logs, service logs, and custom logs. So for audit logs, this is where you click on audit, and by default, it's gonna show set of audit records here. You see that here the filter time. So we can set the filter by time based on, if you want to look at the last week audit records, you can do the custom. If I want to do like past 3 hours, you can do that, right? So you can put like a lot of filters. Let's say I'm not interested on all the audit records. I just wanted to see a user called GK Gola, what are the things he has done on the system for last like 3 hours, right? So you can select the user and you see that. Or you can put the filters. Let's say GK might have interacted with many OCA resources. It could be creating VCNs, computes, or it could be any other action. So you can actually filter by resource. So this is very self-explanatory. I mean, you can drive through each and every option here, then search based on. So what do I get? Like, for example, let's say uh, when GK logged into OCI tenancy, it asked to do like multi-factor authentication. So you can clearly see there is SSO auth factor. When I click on that, it is going to provide a complete information about that particular audit event. And this is expressed in the form of JSON. It will provide the complete information about that particular activity. And not only that, you can actually export based on your node need. You can export this log information, audit records to the JSON format, and send it to your audit or any other team. So this is about audit. This is where you get all the control plane events. Now let's talk about the other types of logs, right? I mean, custom logs and service logs. So here we have the log groups. As I mentioned, whenever you create a custom log or a service log or audit log, they must belong to a log group, right? So here, that's what I'm seeing. Like in the compartment called the root compartment, there is a default group. In the default log group, I have two types of logs. One is the VCN flow logs, and one is the event logs, right? And how do I search this log? So you go onto the search option, very similar to audit logs. You can explore, visualize your service logs and custom logs here, and you can export if you want, or you can create your own custom filters, or let's say right now it is pointing to the root by default. So I'm not interested at the root level. Let's say I'm very interested in my very specific project, for example, demo, and I can select the default group and I can filter. For example, I'm very interested in the LB logs, load balancer logs. I just select that, click on continue. If there are any logs which matches my criteria, it's going to display here, right? Right now you see there are like 3, 5, 5, 6 records. But if I want to see the data, I can go to explore and see each log entry and along with the complete information. So this is how you use the console to query, whether it is audit, service, or custom logs. And for custom logs, as I mentioned, right? So how do I bring custom logs? Like you use agent. There is an agent config that you need to do. This goes onto your computing instances to collect those logs. Again, I mean, in this demo, we are not going to cover this, but this is where you come and create the agent configuration to pull logs from your custom applications. And the other important point, connector hub. This is very important. Like, as I mentioned, right? This is a vehicle that will help you to move data from one place to other place. So now I'm going to cover integration between OCI and SIEM, IBM QRadar, right? So the first step is to create a connector. My goal is to push logs from OCI to QRadar, right? I create the connector name. Again, the connector name can be anything, whatever you want. So let's put the description called SIEM integration. So my goal is to push logs from my VCN flow logs. I have a workload where, I have my own VCN. So I would like to send VCN flow logs from here. And also I would like to send audit logs, right? You can select the audit. And when you come here, it's going to show like based on your selections, it will tell you approximately how many log records that you can send to target service, the target system, right? So when you select the log groups, if you have a requirement where you don't want to send all the information, but I would like to further define a filter, a where condition, you can use a where condition to filter out the logs. And now select the target endpoint, which is streaming. This is where my QRadar comes and pulls the data, right? So select the streaming and select your streaming service. Yep, I have selected the streaming. Now I would like to use QRadar streaming. So when you do that, your connector hub needs certain permissions to read data from logging service and push it to the streaming. So I'm going to create the policies, then click on create. So this is a configuration we need to do on OCI side. So once you set up the service connector, then you go on to IBM QRadar. So this is my IBM QRadar SIEM system. I'm logging as with the admin hat. So as an administrator, first I need to onboard my OCI logging source. So you see here on the QRadar, I go to log source management. Here we have already onboarded OCI as one of the log source. So let me quickly show the configuration. So this talks about how QRadar can pull data from OCI using Apache Kafka protocol, and the type is universal DSM. But how does QRadar knows like where to go and how to pull, right? So this is where you go. So here we have mentioned our streaming endpoint and OCI, and the name of the streaming that we have on OCI side, and also the authentication information. So this will help you to connect to OCI and authenticate before it starts pulling the data, right? So you feed all the information you create. So once the integration is done, then what is the value I get, right? So now when I go to QRadar dashboard, whenever I go to log activity, now I can see all the logs which are coming from OCI. So before the demo, I have created the log filter, which are specifically coming from OCI. You see that here. So these are all the logs coming from OCI, and this is how a log record. So a log record could be anything, right? I mean, when someone creates a compute node, or when someone creates a user, or any kind of activity, it will be recorded as a log. So this is a log event that you see on the SIEM system side. So this way, on the SIEM system itself, based on the log record it is coming, you can define your own parameters and create an alert that you think this could be a potential security incident or a security issue. So that control will be on your SIEM side. You can create rules to generate an alert, right? So that's about demo part for both OCI logging as well as SIEM integration. Let me switch back to the slide deck here. So let's say like you may think let's say like if a customer do not have a SIEM system, like what is the alternate? So we have another service called OCI Logging Analytics. I mean, it solves different types of problems, but again, one of the use case you can solve is you can use logging analytics as a SIEM system for you, right? So let's see like what exactly the logging analytics. So with the log service itself, you have a bunch of data, but how do you use that data, right? I mean, do you want to spend that time manually and have your data scientists to look at the data and analyze and see like what is going on? So that is one way of doing, or you can use logging analytics that will bring all the information from logging service, and you can ingest millions of log rows and it will do smart analytics for you. Like you don't need to spend time going through each and every log record, correlate, all those sort of things. Like it will be done by logging analytics. Like as soon as you bring the data into logging analytics, it has its own inbuilt machine learning algorithms to process the data and provide you insights to explain how your environment looks like from the managing standpoint, performance, as well as a security standpoint, right? So that's where logging analytics will help you. You can create your dashboards based on your requirement, and especially like when you get data from different sources, right? I may get data from OCI or on-prem, and each system could be different, whether it's a database, web server. So whenever a log comes in, the source of each log could be a different format. So how do I cleanse my data and bring it and neutralize their log record? So this service will provide 250 plus parsers to understand your custom logs and bring it to a neutral form of log record. So that's how logging analytics will help you to, this service can be used as a SIEM platform, if you will, right? So that is what we have done. Like, for our customers, we made it like even more simpler. So we built a dashboard called Security Analytics and Forensic Evaluation. This exactly mimics like a SIEM platform, right? And the options are endless. Like, if you want to go deep dive and build your own dashboards, that's possible. But at very high level, let's see like what it offers. So as I mentioned, like this is designed for our customers who are interested in critical security events. Like they would like to know how does their security posture look like on a continuous basis, and they may not have a SIEM system, right? So they could use this asset, right? So out of the box dashboard, it provides insights into security threats from the multiple aspects, whether it could be identity security or network security, right? So let's say a couple of examples here. In case of identity security, you will get to see like, my users' information, like how many successful logins, failed logins, are there any user creations or deletions, right? Similarly, like networking dashboard, I could see like what is going on the networking standpoint, like, what is my total network traffic? What is coming in? What is going out? Are there any changes to my security list? So these are the different aspects, you get visibility into. But again, like right now, I'm showing only 2 dashboards, but there are a bunch of dashboards that you can utilize. But how do I use this asset? It's very simple. Like, on GitHub, we already created a stack. With a single click, you can launch that stack into your OCI tenancy and define like what logs you want to push in the step 2. Once you bring that log information into log analytics, like you can deploy the dashboards, and on the dashboard, you are ready to go and see like whatever it generates from the security standpoint. Like you would see INT events, security operations, or network security. Like you can see all sort of data there. So I think with that I have covered these 3 topics. So before I hand it over to Dinesh, so these are the topics we have covered. And these are all the useful resources that you would like to go through later point. But with that, let me hand it over to Dinesh. He's going to talk about next 2 topics. Hey, Dinesh, it's all yours now.
All right. Thank you, GK. That was very informative. So just a quick recap of what GK has said, right? I mean, what GK has shown us is how we collect logs, how we collect them into log groups, and then how we have those logs read by either a SIEM or a log analytics tool, right? So this is all what we have done is so far, I would say more like investigative monitoring. And when it comes to OCI monitoring, what we are doing is we are doing real-time monitoring, right? So you want to know how your cloud infrastructure or your application stack is behaving in real time, right? So in short terms, OCI monitoring is nothing but a real-time monitoring tool across your cloud infrastructure and your application stack, right? So what it collects is it would collect the data about the health of the resource, the capacity of the resource, and the performance of the resource, right? And if you want advanced querying, we have a very powerful monitoring query language for it, and you could slice and dice the metrics as required. Okay, and finally, OCI monitoring integrates. It's a native service, and what it would do is it would integrate really well with OCI notifications. And you have several channels open from OCI notifications for these alerts that you have created against the monitoring, right? I'm going to cover this alerts in alarms or alerts in the next slide. But you have various channels available. Like if you want to choose SMS, PagerDuty, or Slack, or any of these options, right? These options are all open. And on top of it, you could use functions. Let's say if none of these channels work for you, you could use OCI functions to customize the way you want the notification to be sent. Okay, I see that the poll was launched, and I see that most of the participants are using SMS or other services. So yeah, like I said, I mean, if there are other services which do not integrate with any of these channels, we could use OCI functions. Okay. So next, so we, like I said, what are we collecting in metrics? We are collecting health, capacity, or the performance of the resource, right? So there are 2 kind of metrics that we could collect. One is service metrics, which is OCI native service namespaces, and the other one is the custom metrics. Custom metrics are nothing but your performance indicators for an application. Okay, so when it comes to OCI services, when you collect some service metrics, right? Let's say CPU utilization or memory utilization, right? These are all OCI service metrics, and the way you differentiate between custom and service metrics from OCI would be the namespace. So all of the OCI service provider metrics will have OCI underscore in their namespace. Okay, I'm going to demo that in the later part of this session, but just to easily recollect, right? That is how we could differentiate. And these metrics are retained for 90 days. And if you want these metrics to be exported out, we have options for that. I'm going to cover that in the next slide. But the granularity, right? I mean, the granularity is the most important part here. We have a minimum granularity of 1 minute, and you could use this for doing a long-term or a short-term analysis, right? When you have the data, you would be able to dice it the way you want it, right? So when it comes to so now that you have collected the data, right? Now, how do you display it is the most important part, right? So you could use dashboards. Like I said, you could either construct OCI dashboards, or you could use a third-party tool. On your left-hand side, we have the OCI console where you could get the metrics and you could build dashboards from it. Or you could use Grafana and you could deploy the OCI data source there and export all of the data onto Grafana and build your own dashboards there if you already have this in your infrastructure. Okay. And the next thing that I want to cover is about alarms, right? Now that we have the data, we know that we are collecting data, right? We are monitoring it. Now, let's say if you have a situation where you are monitoring a resource and you see that it is hitting a threshold where you want to be informed about, right? So that is when the alarms would come into picture. Alarm could be set up against one resource or against multiple resources. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a query, a simple query, right? What I'm checking for is CPU utilization. Whenever the max CPU utilization within a 1 minute span is greater than 90 degrees, I want to be informed about it, right? This is a simple query. And I could refine it further by saying that I want it to be checked only against this resource ID, right? Or I would want to be known about only this VM, about this VM shapes, and which are grouped in this availability domain. And if there's a pool ID associated with it, I want to group them together and I want to monitor them. So this is how we could build advanced queries. Okay. To further refine it, we could add a lot more dimensions to it. Okay. The next aspect I want to cover is, like I said, these alarms invoke the notification service. I'm going to demo this. But what happens is you have notification services associated with this alarm, and they would send you the notification in the channel that you have chosen. Let's say if you want to use a third-party incident management system, right, like ServiceNow, you could do that too. These alarms integrate with third-party incident management services as well. Okay. All right. So another use case that we have often seen is where customers want this metrics data to be exported out, right? So that could be done. We could save it again, like when GK covered this, he was talking about service connector hubs. Service connector hubs are used for moving this metric data from one location to another location. So it could be our object storage, or it could be a third-party product where wherever you want this data to be moved, we could move the data to there. Okay. Now, let's quickly go through a demo of looking at the metrics and setting them up. Okay, so the way we reach the metrics is either through the search bar, or you go to observability and management and go to monitoring. So you would see these are the, this is how it would display it. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm going to my compartment and I'm saying that I want to monitor my VM, let's say, and I want to choose a space, right? I mean, I say that, like I said, there are filters available for 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, or if you want to do it for a shorter duration, right? You have it till 24 hours. Okay. So let me choose the last 30 days. Okay. So what it has done is it has populated the data for me. And these are all the graphs that would be built into it. So you could quickly analyze them as required. You don't have to build a dashboard now, but if you choose to build a dashboard, we could do that. Or you could go to your metrics explorer and you can compare one metric against another one. Let's say if I want to compare my load average, right? Again, let me select my compute agent. And if I want to select my load average, and the interval that I want to choose is 5 minutes, okay? And I want to update the chart, right? So again, in the last 24 hours, I don't have any. So I'll put it to last 30 days, or maybe last 7 days. I have some data populated here, right? And I want to compare it with, let's say, my CPU utilization at the same time, right? Sorry, compute agent. And then you go to CPU utilization and the 5 minute interval, update chart. So it would put both of them together. Maybe let's change the last 24 hours. Yeah, so for some reason, load average, where is it? Okay, yeah, there are two lines here. They are a little overlapped, but you could see that there is a color difference between the two. So that is how it would overlap both of those metrics onto this metric explorer. Okay, and let's say if there is an alarm going on, you want to check what the alarm is for, right? I don't have any firing alarms at this moment, so I can't see any of those being listed here. Okay, agents is what is used to collect the information. So if you have something running on-prem, or if you have a third-party cloud, and if you would like to collect the metrics from there, you would create the agents and you would configure the agents so that they would collect the information for you. Okay, and here is the alarms. When you create an alarm, right? This is how your alarms would be shown, and you could create an alarm from here. You could fill out all of this information, or you could go to service metrics, and you go to OCI compute, and again, let's choose the last 30 days and let the graph populate. And let's say I'm more interested in the memory utilization, right? So what I say is, from the drop down in the options, I would say create an alarm on this query. Okay, so this is my memory utilization alarm, right? Okay, so that is my memory utilization alarm, and what I'm going to do is I'm saying that I want it over a 5-minute period. Okay, and I want to see if this value is greater than 80%. I want to be notified about it. Okay, the severity, I would say a warning. Okay, it's not too critical for me. Again, you could adjust the severity as you want. I'm just for demo sake, I'm just putting it to warning. And here is a notification service, right? So you are going to say, I want to be notified about this. And the topic is where you select the channel. Okay, now this is memory utilization topic. Okay, and here are the protocols that we could use. We could use email, or we could use any of the functions that are available. The functions that you're going to build. Or if you have a URL, right, a custom HTTPS URL where this raw data can be pushed to, you could use that too. Or you could use any of these channels that are available. Okay, and then you just go ahead and create the alarm. I'm not creating it for now because I have not provided proper information. So that is how you would create alarms against the metrics that you're collecting. Okay, let's quickly go back to the presentation and understand what we have covered so far, right? So what we have covered in this monitoring section is, so we have resources either on OCI or on-prem or on a multiple cloud, on a multi-cloud environment. And what we're doing is we are pushing the metrics into our monitoring service, right? The raw data gets collected here and we aggregate the raw data. And you could use the OCI console to display it, or you could take the programmatic approach, use our API calls to get the data out and do the required monitoring, or you could use third-party monitoring tools to build your own dashboards. In addition to that, what you can do is you could have alarms built into this metrics. So if there is an alarm going on, you could send this data either to your streaming or to your notification services to get notified about a certain situation. This is how you could monitor your resources running on OCI or on-prem. Okay. So with that, we're going to move into the events section. Okay. So you might ask, why do we need OCI monitoring and events again? I mean, isn't it the same, right? Technically, they're the same, but the thing is, not every OCI resource would create a metric, right? Let's say you are logging into the OCI console. That is not a metric. That is a state change. right? Similarly, let's say somebody loads a file into your storage, into the object storage. That is a state change, okay? So what events would do is it would help us in creating event-driven workflows, okay? What I mean by that, I'm going to demonstrate in next few seconds. So like GK said, we are compliant with CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation standards. And what I mean by that is the event messages that are created will be consistent with any other cloud native application. Okay. So let's say I created a compute instance, and what will happen is the compute instance would get provisioned, and you would see that the instance is provisioned now. When we do this, what will happen is we will see that there will be an OCI event that gets generated. So based on this event, what I could do is I could build a custom function where I would create an object storage. Okay. So this object storage would be associated with the compute instance. When the compute instance goes away, I could use the same function and use the same OCI event to drop the storage as well. Okay, so that is an event-driven workflow. Let's say I have a compartment as like a finance compartment or a secure compartment, right? And I don't want anybody creating any resources in there. Okay, so let's say somebody created an instance in that compartment. I want to be notified about it. So I could use the notification service, and I could use the OCI events or notifications and get the update about that, right? And let's say if that is not the case, I don't have either one of them, but I want this to be sent to an external monitoring system, right? You could use streaming for that. And the streaming service would consume these messages, and it would notify you of the changes that are being done, okay? And finally, the notification service, right? The notification services is like the last mile for this, so for events and monitoring to work, right? So what they do is they integrate really well with all of our native platform services, and they offer you multiple channels for these messages to be transmitted, right? Whenever there is a notification, you want to be notified about it, right? There are multiple channels, and if any of these channels don't work, I'm kind of repeating myself, but OCI functions is flexible enough that you could integrate with anything that you want, okay? So let's quickly demo this. I want to cover two use cases here, right? So this is a slide you might have seen in the past as well. If you have attended the previous session, you might have seen this. What we are doing is somebody created, let's say somebody created a bucket which in the which is public, right? We don't want the bucket to be in public, right? So what we are doing is we are leveraging a CloudGuard event to remediate this situation, okay? So somebody created a bucket. A bucket should not be public. It should be private, but it was created. So what we have is we have a CloudGuard configuration detector, which would detect that this is a problem. Okay, so it would create a problem for us, and it would say that there is a criticality associated with it. So right now we have it associated as a critical problem. Once the problem is detected, what we have is we have a recipe which would actually mark the bucket private. Okay, so it is more like a remediation that we have. Okay, for that, when that happens, what we have is we have a cloud event as well. So the OCI events will get notified that there is an event, and I want this to be notified to a certain set of people. So let's say if it is an alias, or if it is a DevOps monitoring team, or if it is your security monitoring team. So if any of these people want to be notified about certain events happening, right, you could use OCI events, and you could use that to notify the people. Or on the other hand, if you want to use OCI functions, and if you want to act upon it, you could use OCI functions as well. Okay, so this is a simple demonstration of what a CloudGuard event can do, right? And again, I mean, in this scenario, we already have a responder recipe which would remediate and which would put the bucket back into to be private. Okay, that's one example. And another example I want to do is I want to show an event where, let's say, a user logs in and adds adds a user to the administrator domain, right? So right now I'm logged into my OCI console as an administrator. And if I go to groups and if I go to domain administrators, and if I assign a user to this, right? So let's say I assign this user to the admin group. Okay, so this is something only the administrator should be able to do, right? I mean, if there is a bad actor and if somebody is elevating themselves to an admin role, right, you want to be notified about it. Okay, so for that, what I've done is I have set up rules where I want to be notified about these kind of identity events, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. So this is my rule, identity events. Okay, and if you look at it, right, what am I looking for? I'm looking for these particular events. When a user gets added to a group, when a user gets created, deleted, or I mean, when a group gets created, group gets deleted, user gets created, user gets deleted, and a user gets removed from a group, right? And I could further narrow it down to other attributes. Like, let's say I just want it to be only for that, let's say for the administrator group, right? I could put the resource ID and I could add the OSID for that admin group, and you would be notified only for the changes that are being done to that administrator group. Okay, in this case I'm not doing that. So now that a situation is happening, right? Or something of this sort is happening, I would need to get notified, right? How would I get notified? I would get notified through a topic. As you could see, there is a topic associated with this event, right? So when this event happens, I want to know about it. And so what I would do is I would create a subscription for myself, and the subscription is here. It's an email. I mean, just to keep it simple, I put it to an email, and I should get notifications. So as you could see, I got a notification saying that there was an action against this group, right? And so if you look at the topic, it is the notification topic as I've shown you. And what is the action that has happened is somebody added a user to the group. Okay, so you could go over all of this information, make sure that this is legit. And if this is something you need to act upon, you would act upon it. If it is something that you know of, then you don't have to. I mean, if you need further information, right, you could always go to our documentation, and we have very nice blogs written about these services. If you have more learning to do about Oracle Cloud, right, these are all the resources that we have. You should be able to, there's a fair amount of resources, and you should be able to gather a lot of information from these. With that being said, Renu.
Thank you. Thank you, Dinesh and GK, for a great session. All these resources will be shared with you. You can find the deck also in Oracle Cloud Customer Cloud Community. And so with that, I mean, you learned a lot about services security. Now, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Services provide effective and manageable security that enables you to run your mission-critical workloads with confidence. So join us on October 21st to learn about WAF, about API gateway, certificate management, and other such OCI security services. You can find the link on the same Devon and Beyond page. You can register from there. And while you're there, please go look at the other series also that we have offered for you. There are hands-on series also where you can learn, you can actually get your feet dirty by trying out some labs with us. So with that, thanks again for joining us. See you all next time. Have a great day, everyone.